It's Friday, 21st May 2021. Good evening. Welcome to News Night on Metro Television. This bulletin is live from our studios here on Dr. Iset Street, North Region, Accra, live on DSTV channel 277 and live on Facebook at Metro News. My name is CROSBY, ANNAN. Let's now take a look at our top stories. Coming up in this bulletin, pressure intensifies for the disbandment of the standing force of the national security, even as preliminary recommendations on the alleged assault of CTFM journalist Caleb Kuda leads to sanctions of 4 security officials. Strong assurance yet as Speaker of Parliament Alban Gbagben set passage of the Affirmative Action Bill latest by the end of 2021. How have advocates received the news? In business, good news for the nation as the European Commission set to remove Ghana from the list of countries that are deficient in anti-money laundering and terrorism financing. Coming up in this bulletin, in sports, week 26 of the Ghana Premier League kicks off as Hearts of Oak beats 11 Wonders at Chiman, Kotoko to welcome Wafa at Obuasi. On the international front, a ceasefire between Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas in the Gaza Strip has come into effect, bringing to an end 11 days of fighting in which more than 250 people were killed, mostly in Gaza. We are back with the details of these stories and more in the next 60 minutes, please. Welcome to the bulletin. Let's start tonight's program with news from the opposition, the National Democratic Congress, and it says they will only return to the Inter-Party Advisory Committee meeting when, among other things, the party is given an equitable voting formula at the committee. Speaking at a press briefing, Director of the NDC, Alves Afriye Ankra, said it is untenable that the biggest opposition party is giving the same representation when it comes to voting at IPAC with other smaller parties.
Must adopt an equitable voting formula for political parties in IPAC deliberations based on their representation in Parliament. We are not saying other parties who otherwise qualify cannot be part of IPAC. That's not what we're saying. In fact, Madame J. Mensah, when she was with IE and she was doing the political parties program, somebody should ask her, why is it that in that program she didn't say every party should come to that program? The basis for participation in that program was representation in Parliament. No, so there was a logic to it. So how come that now you are at IPAC? You are at EC. Again, let me put on record. We don't have any problem with other political parties. We don't have any problem with their existence, but we're saying that there should be common sense and logic. And when it comes to this, you cannot say that a party that has 137 seats in Parliament should go and then you bring 20 other parties, most of them don't have any seat, didn't participate in the election, and they all have 1 vote.
We'll be speaking with officials from the Electoral Commission on these subjects and related developments. Now, leaders of the minority parties, the CPP and PPP, are calling on the Electoral Commission to put in the necessary infrastructure to ensure that Ghanaians are not disenfranchised in the process of implementing the reforms. Their comments come after the EC proposed to change the closing time for polls in subsequent elections from 5 p.m. to 3 p.m. amongst other reforms.
When you look at it effectively and the rationale behind it, the polls should end early so that counting can start early. If counting is done in the dark, normally that is where all this ambiguity and stealing my vote comes in. But if it is done in broad daylight, everybody sees what is going on. On that score, it is the best. But also the implementation issues, areas that are far, and even the time of starting the vote. That is where we did not even talk about. That if now it's 7 to 5, are we doing it 4 to 3? Or are we doing it 7 to 3? I mean, are we doing it the same time? I have been saying and ever since we finished IPAC, that there is the need for some form of arbitration and settlement between the two parties. Both parties should not take entrenched positions. And I heard there is an eminent group of elders which are affiliated to the EC. There is the Peace Council. These are neutral bodies, and they should find a way of bringing them together. The inclusion of the NDC in IPAC is key, because they are part of the political process. They are a key political party in the dispensation, and we need to ensure that whatever their hate is, we have to deal with it. For them to come back and react to the reforms, it shows that they are not aloof, it shows that they are interested, it shows that they want to be part. But you have to have the right avenue, the right platform to be part of the process.
I believe that whatever it is, so long as it doesn't disenfranchise the voter, and if it seems to look to disenfranchise the voter or cause any electoral violence or irregularities, then maybe they should actually look at putting in the infrastructure for whatever polling stations are affected. So that I hear it's only because there isn't enough lighting to count the polls at the end of the polls. So put in the infrastructure. How much does it take for each polling station? Maybe they should be looking at that.
SEPA has rejected claims of best procurement practices and diligence by the Electoral Commission, which, according to the Commission, led to a huge reduction of cost in the conduct of the 2020 general elections. According to SEPA, the statement by the Electoral Commission is not only false, but extremely misleading and calculated to whitewash the EC's image as a reckless spender in the 2020 general elections. There's more in this report. 87 million cedis was allocated. According to SEPA, a quick scan on the Ministry of Finance official website reveals that more than 444 million cedis was allocated to the EC in 2020 for the compilation of a new voters register. In the same year, over 287 million cedis was allocated to the Electoral Commission for the conduct of the 2020 general elections, summing up to over 760 million cedis. In the press release, SEPA noted that it is in this amount that the EC divided by the total number of registered voters, which is 16.9 million, to get the 40.78 cedis it claimed to have spent on each voter in 2020. SEPA believes the EC deliberately failed to add the $24 million it spent to procure new BVDs and BVRs and the $74 million it spent to build a new data center, all in the build-up to the 2020 general elections. It says the data center and the new BVR kits alone cost the EC $94 million, equivalent to 567 million cedis at the current exchange rate, bringing the total cost of the 2020 elections to 1.3 billion cedis. According to the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, the EC spent a total of 76.9 cedis per voter in 2020, an excess of 116 million more than the cost of the 2016 general elections. SEPA further urged the public to regard the claim by the EC as fictitious, baseless, and a mere propaganda by the election management body that is not backed by facts. Right, so on the back of the press conference by the NDC and the claims from SEPA, we've been joined on the line by Director of Electoral Services for the Electoral Commission, Dr. Sribo Kwaku, for more on this. Doc, we're grateful for your time with us on Newsnight. Now, the NDC at the press conference, I'm sure you've heard their concerns. They claim the reforms which were proposed by our outfit at the recent IPAC meetings will create chaos and panic during future elections. What do you make of these claims?
I don't know whether you yourself have had a chance to look at the reform proposals. If you have a look at it, we read that we have done proper analysis of the 2020 election, and with the political parties, we all came into agreement that if we are to reduce the timing of the election from 5 to 3, we'll be able to finish the election on time, do the counting to enable the officials move from the various polling stations to the coalition center during the daytime, because in the darkness, a lot of things can happen. And we are saying so from the point that because of the efficiency that has been built into the system, if you monitor the 2020 election well, you realize that around 1 o'clock, most of the centers were empty. Nobody was voting. And they have to wait up to 5 o'clock before they do the counting.
Right. Doc, this was a meeting. The NDC was not present, correct?
Yes, you are right.
Right. So, as key stakeholders in the country's electoral process, being as of now the major opposition party in the country, it says, coupled with their absence, that they will not return to IPAC until they're giving equitable representation during IPAC votings again. What's your reaction to this?
I don't know the meaning of equitable representation. What I know is that APAC is a meeting of political parties, and at such meetings, the political parties are given the same right to make their points, then decisions are taken. I have been in the commission since '95. I don't remember any voting taking place in my presence. In most cases, we do the deliberation and we come with a consensus. So I don't know when voting was done that, and I don't know how you are even going to apportion the voting. What weight are you going to give?
Look, the NDC argues that it has 137 parliamentary seats and secured more than 6.2 million votes. So why should it be sharing the same one vote with other smaller parties? You know, don't you think that is a fair call to make? Maybe a formula could be struck out to make a key stakeholder like the NDC feel adequately listened to at such meetings going forward.
My brother, in democracy, the rich and the poor, the fat and the slim, the father and the son, they all have similar vote, one man, one vote. I don't know how the weight will be done. Of all the elections that I've seen, as far as democracy is concerned, it's one man, one vote.
Right, Doc, before I let you go, let's pick up your thoughts on this. So, ASEPA, the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, says...
If you take the machines, they will last over a number of elections. So if you want to spread the cost, you cannot assign all the cost to 2020. There will be different elections. We will do 2023, 2024, and subsequently. So you have to spread the cost of the fixed asset over the project number of years that the election, the fixed machine will be used. It is the consumables that will only use it to cover only 1 year. So when you are doing the computation, you cannot spread the data center, everything over 2020. Are you saying that after 2020, we will destroy the data center machines, BVDs, and the rest? So when they are computing, they need to consider the average fixed cost and the average variable cost before they can talk of
right. Dr. Kwaku, thank you so much for joining us. Briefly, before you go, so at such meetings, at such IPAC meetings, and if the NDC or a key stakeholder is not represented, considering that the decisions from these meetings are binding, what happens going forward?
You see, what we should understand is that if you are Metro TV, if you go for a meeting and the meeting takes a decision, you know that is a decision of the Metro TV. You will not say that because A and B are not there, they are out of the decision. APAC took decisions, and these are proposals. When you make proposals for reforms, you are not implementing the reforms. You are saying that these are issues that we have to consider. It has to go to a lot of discussions before you even, most of them you have to draft a law. It will go to Attorney General Department for it to be shipping. It will go to Parliament before you can even amend the law. So it's not a matter of that because the APAC has decided we are implementing it tomorrow. It doesn't work like that.
Thank you so much again, Dr. Sribo Kweku, for joining us on Newsnight. We really appreciate your time with us. We've been speaking with Director of Electoral Services of the Electoral Commission, Dr. Sribo Kweku, on the stance of the NDC and the allegation by the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability on the cost of running the 2020 elections, as against the claim by the Electoral Commission that it saved some 90 million cedis from the 2020 elections. We'll be speaking with security analyst Adam Bona via Zoom on Ghana's, national security issue following the desecondment of the Director of Operations at the National Security, Lieutenant Colonel Frank Agyemang, on the arrest and alleged abuse of the CTFM journalist. I understand we've been joined on Zoom by Adam Bona, security analyst. So we're grateful for your time with us on Newsnight. In an earlier interview on Newsbeat, you called for the standing force of the national security to be disbanded as recommended by the Emil Short Commission. You also called for a presidential commission of inquiry to be set up. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, we recall the white paper disagreeing with some of the recommendations by the